second round of this year's Six Nations, and things are starting to get serious. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. After round one, I think, a lot of the teams will be feeling that round two, there's a lot of opportunity there for them, whether that's to, continue their good start, to, turn things around a little bit, or, to just build on, maybe a decent performance, but not a decent result in the first round. So I think every team, still feels there's a lot to play for at this stage of the competition. That's great. Like everybody feeling, that they're still in this thing. And what we're going to do today is just quickly talk about each of the matchups. Later on in the week, we're going to do actual, previews of each of the games where we talk about the lineups, etc. once they've been announced. But today is just more about kind of more high level stuff about where I feel each team is, and how I think this particular matchup that they have this weekend is going to go, and how that's going to affect them as well through the rest of the tournament. So we're going to start with the first game on Saturday, which is Scotland versus France. So, as I said, it's on Saturday, 10th of February. It's at the Scottish Gas, Murrayfield. So, thankfully, they didn't make that a mouthful to say, right? And the kickoff is 2:15 GMT. So, wherever your local time is, plus or minus GMT, that's your kickoff time. And for anybody watching in Ireland, I know it's on Virgin Media. I don't know where it is on anywhere else. It doesn't actually, it probably says somewhere, but not on the official site that I'm looking at, because obviously noticing that I'm in Ireland. Okay, so Scotland versus France. So first round, Scotland started with a victory, but it's kind of a weird one, isn't it? The way they went in that second half, it almost feels like it was a defeat for them, whereas France definitely was a defeat. And France are not going to play as bad as that for their whole rest of this tournament. So Scotland know that, a backlash is coming. But, this Scotland team, I still think they're on the cusp of, breaking into that kind of level where Ireland and France have been for a while. It's whether they can do that or not. You see teams kind of rise up to just below that kind of level, and then so many teams then kind of stay at that level for a while and then fall back, or like the ones that are really special just find us something extra to break through. And this could be, this game and this year could be where Scotland really do, rise above kind of the rest in this Six Nations as well. So for that, I think there's a lot on the line really for both of these teams in terms of not just this Six Nations, but also in terms of kind of the development as well, the start of this kind of World Cup cycle, seeing where they are, and it could affect people's kind of international careers. If either of these teams finish well below where they were expected to, you're going to see guys who've been like mainstays of the teams suddenly, maybe being kind of phased out or jettisoned even, and then other players coming in. And then on the flip side, if the team recovers, then you've got to, that's your core of your next World Cup side there, and then you just had to add on a few extras on top of that. So I think it's a massive game in terms of not just this tournament, not just this weekend, but also in terms of just the future trajectory of both of these teams. So Scotland, obviously, if Finn Russell is going to start at 10. So my question is, do you put Healy on the bench then? Because if there's no scenario other than injury to Finn Russell, what is Healy giving you on the bench? That he does give you lots of options in terms of probably better game management and that kind of thing. Finn Russell obviously gives you huge pluses, and he absolutely has to be the starting 10, but still you've got options on the bench from Healy. But I don't know whether Townsend is willing to go there, especially it always seems like it's a very fragile truce between himself and Finn Russell with things. It just needs one little thing to happen, and suddenly they're not best buds anymore. But that's the thing though, is Healy, I thought, would have given him something more in that second half against Wales than Russell was giving him at that time. Now, could Healy have done what Russell did in the first half? It's doubtful, because Russell, he's a special player, but still Healy does have skills that he brings to the party as well. So that's one kind of consideration there. The other one is the fact that they know Blair Kinghorn in the first game against Wales. He's going to be out as well for this one, and I think he gives them again more options there from fullback. Like Kyle Rowe, he did a decent job from like fullback. No kind of complaints on him there, but he doesn't give you the options that Blair Kinghorn would, because Kinghorn, he's got that ability to, and the confidence as well, to come in and be a second playmaker there, kind of take some of the heat off Russell, and also just be an extra threat. And then you've got defenders watching him, which even if he doesn't touch the ball, it's opening up space for others as well, because they're too worried about him. Then on top of that, he's got that kind of lovely passing game too, to put players through gaps, and then he can go through gaps himself. So you can't just kind of pick what he's going to do, because he's got so many options as well. He's got great pace to get through a gap, and he really has an eye for a try as well. And that kind of it's a consideration as well, that he's not there. So you've got more kind of more on Finn Russell's shoulders really in terms of getting that back line going. He did it really well in the first half. Duhan van der Merwe coming off his wing looking for work. It's always great to see him do that, because when he's out on the wing, he can get isolated at times, and he can look a shadow of what his real potential is. But if you get that guy coming off his wing into the centre, put him into space, and then once he gets up to speed, he can step you, he can brush you off, and you're really going to struggle to stop him, make him major ground against you. And that's what we want to see really from Scotland, more of that against France. France are going to give them plenty of opportunity to do that, and we know that just because of the way these two teams play. They're both love to run the ball, but both also love to kick the hell out of the ball as well. So they'll be kicking the ball to each other, and then both teams will get that chance to pick their moments to run the ball back as well. And they're both really good at that kind of broken field running, and just as soon as space is there, exploiting it and making the most of it. So I think it's going to be a super exciting game. But back to kind of the Scotland selection. So Scotland, I feel like it's hard to see too many changes from their starting team against Wales. I could be completely wrong with that. We probably will see like a few changes at least. But when you look at things like the guys that came off the bench against Wales, you can't say that really anyone had a major impact on the game, positively at least, from their point of view. So I think a lot of the guys who are starting will probably keep their spots. You might have a couple of players who were kind of doubtful injury wise for the first game and might be coming to the reckoning for this one, so we'll have to see what happens there. But I think generally I'm expecting much the same team and not too many changes, but I could be completely wrong on that, but that's just my gut feeling. For France, I could see a lot of kind of not wholesale changes, but certainly some key changes for them. I thought Lagaric was excellent off the bench, and him starting and then maybe Luku on the bench is probably the way I see it going. But Luku could just be given another go there. Then BLBRE I thought was excellent when he come on, and that guy he's just fire. He's so elusive, and he's one of those players where, you know, he's worth just going to watch him play. And every time he gets the ball, you know, people are on the edge of their seats already. Like he's so young, but still, you know, there's a potential for something special to happen. And I think because of that, you know, they had who was it? Mo Fana, right, was on the wing. So I can imagine, you know, BLBRE starting on there, and then I don't know whether they probably will. I'd imagine, like, you know, they're not going to move Mo Fana into the centres, because you look at that centre pairing of Fiku and Dante, and generally they're excellent, and that's a big matchup as well. If it is those guys, you know, against Tuipulotu and Jones, you know, two of the best Northern Hemisphere centre pairings over the last, you know, kind of couple of years. So, you know, that's exciting as well if that's going to happen there. But then, yeah, from France's point of view, I can see, like, obviously there's no Willemse as well, because he's going to be have some kind of ban, I would expect. And then, you know, you have kind of, so somebody's going to come in for him. Then you think about, okay, well, are they going to change the pack? Because, like, that, you know, the pack got kind of, you know, I wouldn't say bullied, because Ireland don't generally bully other teams. They're not physical enough for it. Like, although Joe McCarthy would beg to differ in that respect, I think. But Ireland just kind of, you know, generally outwork packs and kind of sideline them rather than kind of, you know, just battering them. I think that's what Ireland did to France as well. So you look at that and you think, well, the quality of that back row, though, you know, with likes of Aldrit, Ollie Vaughan, Jalonche in there as well, like that. You think of that and you think, well, the guys are all just top quality. Like, get them on the pitch, and if they hit form, they're just going to deliver for you. So it's difficult to see in the pack how many changes are going to happen, but it's worth it, I think, with something like that, of just freshening things up a little bit. Maybe, you know, swap one of those guys out. You're going to have somebody coming in the second row as well for Willemse, and then maybe you know, maybe swap. You know, put Antonio on the bench for impact in the second half, and then give somebody else a start instead in that front row. So, you know, maybe 3 changes in the pack I could see happening, and then just liven things up. And then in the backs, as I said, potentially you got Lagarde coming in, and then BLBRE onto the wing. I don't know whether I change anyone else in the back line, honestly, because again, like, it's just dripping with quality. Really, for me, it's more the coaching side of things. It's the attacking structures that they're giving the players need to evolve a little bit. Now, whether they can do that in a week, I don't know, but you know, Scotland are going to be very different opposition to Ireland anyway. Scotland are the team that are going to want to come at them and attack them. So France are going to get more space, and maybe that back line is going to look, you know, the quality unit that it is in that game. But I think overall, it's going to be a massive game, as I said, for both teams. I think it's going to be a high scoring game as well. I would not be surprised if both teams get their try bonus point out of this. And it's hard to say, like, with it, but, you know, just going on, well, I was going to say going on past feeling or past results, but Scotland actually do well against France. It's Ireland that they struggle against, really, when it really comes to the crunch. But I just feel that France, the fact that they need to bounce back from this, otherwise it's going to be like a mini crisis for them, like losing 2 on the bounce. I think because that's going to just about edge the game from them. But I think that whoever wins this game, you know, the opposition are going to be right there within a score in like the last few minutes of the game. You could see, you know, either team defending desperately on the line or attacking desperately to get the score to win the game. I think that's going to be one of those, a real nail biter of a finish. So that's that one. Next, then we have England versus Wales. This one is also on Saturday the 10th of February. It's at Twickenham, and the kickoff is 4:45 GMT, and this one for any Irish fans is on RTE. So this one, you know, it's again, it's another interesting matchup, because you got England there, who, like, Italy looked so good against them, but England did come through for the win. And then Wales, they got absolutely destroyed by Scotland in that, like, first half or first, like, 50 odd minutes, and then they came back so strong in the end and almost pinched the win. So both of these teams actually had better finishes than starts to their games, and that's going to be kind of interesting in this as well, is that I think both teams will feel like, even if they're like a couple of scores behind, that there's still that potential to come back, in the last kind of 30 minutes to or so of the game, and close the gap and at least make the game make the game close in the end, or at least get to the point where sometimes it happens, team will come back and they're back within a score, and then the team that ultimately wins the game gets maybe a score or two right at the end to kind of blow the score out a bit. But really, in reality, it was a much closer finish than it looked on the scoreline. But I kind of think that's maybe the way this game is going to go. In terms of England, like, they had the likes of Roots, who was it, Freeman was in there as well, and then they had like 4 other debutants, some off the bench as well, like, what's the guy's name? It's something. I hate when I forget people's names, because it happens to be. I think I'm just getting old. It's the problem, right? I just got an old man memory. I used to be able to remember everything, but it's he has South in his name, but my brain is going, no, I'm not telling you what it is. But he's one of the ones I thought he was decent off the bench. And then, so for those guys, now it's about, can you back up your performance? Can you now show that you're a genuine option in this England team, for not just for the Six Nations, but again, this is kind of the next Rugby World Cup cycle. Like, some guys, in this Six Nations, especially for England, they're gonna basically go from being, maybe uncapped or having very few caps, to being a core member of the England team going into the next World Cup, and that's what's on the line for them. For Wales, it's a young team, and we saw in kind of that second half when Johan Lloyd and Tomas Williams came on, the difference that those two guys made at halfback. I think because that they both deserve to start a partnership, and it wouldn't be too bad for them to actually be under the pump a little bit more as well, because Lloyd, he's a young guy, and he needs experience of pressure situations where it's not this momentum of you're coming back, you're on top, your pack is doing his job. More the opposite way, where you're hanging on or something and having to be able to manage that from 10. I think that would be great for him, because you can see there's a lot of potential in him, and there's a lot of young players as well. I thought Asarati coming off the bench was excellent. Domachowski as well, starting in the front row, he was decent too. And you got Reffel, I thought had overall a pretty good game. So there's plenty of players there that Gatland can build a good team around. The likes of Rio Dyer as well looks threatening when they get him in space too. But I think they need a lot more support for him. And I think that's going to come in time where players kind of anticipate his breaks a little bit more, and they're there in support, rather than having to make up the ground and not quite being there for the pass and then losing momentum. So I think, for both of these teams, there's a lot of, it's a lot of unanswered questions, I think, around a lot of players in their squads, but there's a lot of potential there in both squads to really, kick on and again, kind of move up from the level that they're at the moment. Like, at the moment, neither, at least based on last year, neither would be considered, genuine title threats, really. England, I feel, because of the just their sheer depth of player numbers, they've always got that kind of shorter period of being able to turn things around, just because it feels for England that they just got to hit the right, they keep trying players, and then they have to hit the right players and the right combinations of players as well, and suddenly things can go from being kind of average or decent to just being really good. Whereas Wales, I think for them, the kind of what is available to them is there for all to see. And as I said, there's some decent young talents in there. It feels like there's a missing generation though in Wales, like where you've got lots of those greats retired, and then the players who came after them weren't up to the same standard, and now you have a potentially, again it's only potential, like potentially decent crop of young players coming through in the URC and now coming into the national team as well, that for them it's gonna be a longer process. I'm not saying that Gatland won't get them playing well in quick order. He may do. What I'm saying is that England can just kind of do it like that at times, whereas Wales, you feel it's gonna take that coaching from Gatland and getting everybody on the right page and stuff. He kind of he can't uncover, like they lost Lou Rees-Zammit. They're not going to uncover another guy like him just out of nowhere. If there is a guy like him, Gatland already knows about him and has made a decision on whether he's going to feature this Six Nations or not. So it's that's kind of the way it is for them. But for England, the way it is for them is that somebody could be great in the first two rounds, get injured, they're out, and then some guy comes in that wasn't even in the initial squad, and then suddenly that's your winger or your one of your two centers for the World Cup, because the guy just finished the tournament so well and then kicked on from there. But yeah, I think in this one it's hard to call, other than I think in terms of when I'm thinking about which team is going to who I think is going to finish above who, I still think England will finish above Wales, and because of that I'm going to go for an England win in that one. I do reserve the right to change my mind, by the way, when we come to the individual previews and actually look at the teams, though. And then on to the last one, Sunday 11th of February. So this is Ireland versus Italy. This is at the Aviva Stadium. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. and this is on Virgin Media for those watching in Ireland. So this, I think every year for Ireland, when we're doing well, Italy is always a weird one for us, because I always want to see like the wider squad getting game time and stuff like that. I think it's really important. That I feel like if somebody is in our Six Nations squad, they should at least get a decent amount of time off the bench, if not a start in at least one of the games. And generally, Italy would be that game that you would kind of pencil in as the one to make those changes. But then you look at Ireland's fixtures this year, like they have Italy, then we have that week break, right? And then we're back like kind of the weekend of the 24th of February. So in terms of going back to back with your first team, it's definitely doable for this game, because you guys are going to get a week break. They then have Wales in Dublin, and then you get a week break again before that trip over to Twickenham. So in terms of if Farrell wants to play his what he feels is his best squad all the way through, and maybe just make minor changes in terms of introducing other players, then that's absolutely something you can do, and not not have it affect the players' welfare because of where the games are falling in terms of breaks. But then you look at it and then you think, well, is that a wasted opportunity? In terms of just getting a few more players in there, and changing things up a little bit. I think like the likes of Craig Casey could absolutely do with having a start in the Six Nations, because Jameson Gibson Park for me is absolutely your first choice 9, and Conor Murray, he's been a legend for Ireland over the years, but now he's a decent backup, and he has, I've spoken at length on this before, he has improved his game, after being out in the cold as well. So he deserves the kudos for that. But then you've got Casey there as well. Like, if Casey is a genuine, option in terms of going to the next World Cup, then he has to be getting, I think, more starts. And what I'd like to see, whether he's starting with Crowley or whether it's going to be, Harry Byrne, or maybe they even stick Frawley in there. I'd like to see him, getting that start and getting a decent amount of game time. And at some stage, getting a start with one of the Leinster options at 10 as well. I would love to have Ross Byrne here, because having the two of them play together would be good, because I think you need that understanding. Otherwise, you're kind of hamstrung a little bit in terms of, well, if this guy is injured, and now it means this other player has to start at 9 or at 10, then do you then go with the player that he's most familiar with from his province, because the other guy he hasn't had that much game time with? So that's kind of my worry on that. But Ireland, it's hard to predict kind of the changes. For me, again, I'd like to see a lot of the wider squad get a shot. Obviously, that is kind of tempting fate, because Ireland, when they're massive favourites, have a tendency to struggle in games like this, where you think they're going to win easily. And a lot of it is because, a lot of it is on us fans, because we think, oh, well, Ireland are just going to show up and sure, they'll be 20, 30 points up, before half time, and then just the floodgates will open the second half and it'll be a new record win or whatever. Whereas Italy are a decent team. Like, we saw that against England. They made England work really hard, and they're not coming to Dublin just to kind of say after you, and let Ireland run in tries from all over the place. So it's gonna be a tough game. And if there are a few of those Ireland players who are brought in that are just a little bit off, suddenly then that has a knock-on effect on the rest of the team, and you're going to have kind of issues with that as well. That that confidence will go maybe, and then that's where you get into an arm wrestle, and then maybe the bench has to come in and rescue the team. And after that, you would be then questioning, well, what did we gain from making so many changes to the starting team? So I'm glad I'm not Andy Farrell in making this decision, because I'd second guess myself a million times, to the point where I'd be sitting in the corner just mumbling to myself. But that's kind of the Irish perspective on things. From the Italian perspective, then, they went really well against England. You can see that there are some great combinations there. The Garbisi brothers, I think Ruzza and Canone is a great second row combination for them, but they've kind of chopped and changed that a lot. So I'd love to see those two get a run together in the second row. Then the back row is kind of similar as well, where it's people have been in and out, and they kind of have about 4 or 5 players that kind of rotate around there as well in their back row. But I'd like to see a little bit more in terms of just getting kind of having a core team there, and then having other players, based on form or whatever is fine, coming in and out of the team, rather than, you don't want this kind of reactionary thing of, oh, well, the second row pairing didn't go so well in the last game, so we'll change both of them, or we'll try a different. We definitely want, say, Ruzza in there, but we'll try a different partner with him, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and not really coming up with a solution. Excuse me. But then looking at the halfback pairing, the two Garbisis, I thought they were excellent together. And are they going to get an easier ride against Ireland? No. But that doesn't mean, you can learn, you can learn a lot in adversity as well. And if they can dig Italy out in that, and, I don't think it's very likely, but you can't rule out Italy just causing a massive upset and going to Dublin and winning as well. It's not like it's impossible for that to happen, right? But we have to look at it practically and say that, in terms of the result, most predictions, I think it would be fair to say, would say that Ireland are going to win, and maybe win, fairly comfortably after, some struggles somewhere during the match, like Italy having a purple patch. But, halfback pairings, again, in adversity, can learn a lot as well, and learn a lot about themselves, and learn a lot about their team and their system, etc., and where they're going to go when the pressure is on. So that could be really good for them. I think, I don't know whether Capozzo is going to be available for this one or not, but if he's available, does that mean then Alan is on the bench and then you don't get that chance for a second playmaker? Or does Alan stay on at full back, and then Capozzo maybe comes on to the right wing, and Pani is on the bench instead? Maybe that's I think that's more likely. But then you got Ioane there as well on the left wing, who is, he just gives them something extra that they were missing last Six Nations, obviously because he wasn't there. But then you look at the centre pairing as well. Brex with those lovely hands in there with Menoncello as well. That centre pairing can be so good when they're firing as well. And then we talked about most of their pack as well, the likes of Lamaro, both Canones. You got even on the bench, from the bench, Giuliani to come there as well. So you can see that in terms of Italy, that the standards within their matchday squad has certainly gotten better over the last few years. I think the standards in their Six Nations squad as well, and then even players who are outside of that, it's kind of a stepping stone. It's kind of something that we saw. If you're an Ireland fan, you would know. Like, we went kind of from those days of having a few players who were decent, and kind of, I'm thinking back to the days like of Keith Wood, and then when Brian O'Driscoll first came on the scene, and we had like an okay team, but you knew in the big games we could get destroyed by the opposition, or we could be up for it and we could win, but we'd have to be really up for it to produce the win. It wasn't like the way it is now, where it's almost an expectation that they're going to win almost every game. But that didn't come overnight. That came through, so many different coaches through the years, and I'm not just talking about national coaches, talking about at the provinces and below that as well. Just nurturing the talent and increasing the depth of Irish rugby, as we became more professional, and also as we kind of improved in terms of kind of our talent spotting as well, and just that kind of pathway for players into the national squad too, I think has improved massively. And because of that, then standards have risen and risen and risen, and that's how you get to where the likes of Ireland or France are. It's not about just having a decent generation of players, because we had that before. We had the likes of kind of O'Driscoll and Darcy and Carney and etc. And those are good guys. They won a Grand Slam, and they did fantastic things for Ireland. But then I feel like this current crop are, I think across the board, I'm not comparing like starting 15s or wherever, like in terms of the teams, talk across the board. I think the talent in Irish rugby now is better than it's ever been, and the aim is to drive that further and further. But that's where Italy are now. They're earlier on in that journey, but that's going to happen to them. Whether that's going to happen on Saturday, though, is another thing. But this is a game that whether they win it and cause a massive upset, or they lose it and maybe in the end lose it kind of in terms of Ireland's position, at least comfortably, there's still going to be things that will come out of this game that is going to help this Italy team improve, because they got a new coach in there. He's going to see things about his players, against a team like Ireland that maybe you wouldn't have seen against England, and then that's going to help him to help them to get better as well. But yeah, I think overall in this one, it's probably going to be an Ireland win. But even as a massive Ireland fan, I want to see Italy do well. I've got kind of a soft spot for them, because so many people kind of put them down and say, oh, they should be out of the Six Nations and blah, blah, blah. And for me, that's just, short-sighted. And, it's just kind of not being able to see that, one day in the past, your team was probably in the same position as Italy, and being kind of the team that finished bottom almost every year. And if it hasn't happened yet, it could happen in the future. So don't just be bagging on Italy because of that. There's, as I said, there's plenty of potential there. But on Saturday, I have to say I'm going to go for an Ireland win. So that is the end of the look forward to round 2. We will have a look, as I said, at the teams when they come out, and we'll do a preview for each of the games, which goes a little bit more in depth into kind of player selection, because there's no point in speculating too much at this point. We're very early in the week, but I did want to kind of get some initial thoughts out there. And as I said, it's kind of more high level than the kind of maybe more in-depth stuff that we will do for the previews. And then we will also have reviews of each of the games. Luckily, this weekend I actually have the weekend off, which is the first time in a long time that I've had a weekend off. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to be a weekend of just binging Six Nations rugby, and I can't wait. I'm already smiling just thinking about it. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll have plenty more videos coming for you later on in the week.